The feelings on this day are the feelings of extreme, deep gratitude to a God Almighty and to the young men and women who fought for this country. Tremendous gratitude. And a feeling that I'm so happy to be alive here, that we were zeicher. My Zayde wasn't zeicher to this, but I am. And most probably it's because of all of the prayers of all of our Zaydes for 2,000 years. We're here. And I pity anybody who doesn't feel into the depth of his heart the significance and the beauty and the power and the holiness of this day. I have to give credit to a man called Ben Gurion. He had a tremendous sense of history. As he walked on Chav Chet Iyar, as he walked to the Kotel, he saw the signs that had been there for years to the Wailing Wall. For 1,000 years, the Goyim had called it the Wailing Wall. They mocked us. And this week, a president of the United States came to the Western Wall. It's not the Wailing Wall anymore. That was the religious significance of that day as far as the rest of the world is concerned. You were wrong. We're not the wandering people, not a single refugee, as I said. Not a single Jewish refugee. We're not the wandering people, and that's not the Wailing Wall. It's a wall that represents the strength and the dynamic power of this country, all with God's help.
The past 70 years have been the era of the unbelievable in Jewish history. What happened and the pace at which it happened defies our ability to understand it. On the 28th of Iyar, 1967, at his first visit to the Kotel after 19 years, Rabbi Aryeh Levine, the Tzaddik HaYerushalmi, said, "B'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion hayinu kecholnim." When God brought us back, we were like dreamers. In a dream, events that take a long time to transpire in real life happen in seconds. What hadn't happened in 2,000 years was happening swiftly, quickly, event following event. David HaMelech goes on to say over there, Shuva Hashem et Shvitenu, bring back our captivity, ka'afikim ba'negev. Like the rivers of the Negev, the afikim ba'negev come suddenly, swiftly, out of the Negev come a torrent of water. So it was in those 6 glorious days 50 years ago. It's a mitzvah to tell our children and our grandchildren what has happened here in the last 70 years. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah lehitbonein b'chazdei Hashem, to study God's kindness, His outpouring of goodness to His people. It can even be done in pictures. I love pictures. Pictures tell a story. When you see a picture of a little boy holding his hands up in surrender, we know that's the Shoah. The picture that has even greater impact on me, long lines of Jews after the war, walking across Europe, going by foot over the Alps, trudging in the snow, to get to the Mediterranean and maybe get onto some unseaworthy boat that will bring them to Eretz Yisrael. And then of course, the iconic picture of all, Chav Chet Iyar, the 3 paratroopers. That's a story of 70 years. Now in 47. Who would have believed that a small, mortally wounded, bleeding people, who the entire world thought were now making finally their exit from history, walking off the stage of history, would, through divine inspiration, assistance, and guidance, rise to create a state and ultimately to become a world power. It's unbelievable. It staggers the imagination. I was zeichet to come to Yerushalayim for the first time in 1955, 62 years ago. Yerushalayim was always beautiful. It always had a charm unparalleled in the world. But there was a painful pallor, a cloud that hung over the city. There was an ugly equation in the world. There were two cities in the world that had a wall going through them like a knife in the heart. Berlin, the capital of darkness, death, destruction, evil, and lahavdil. Elef alfei alofim havdolot, Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, the city of light, of life, of God's divine presence, sanctity, holiness. I remember praying then, someday let the wall of Yerushalayim come down before the wall of Berlin. And it happened on Chavchet Iyar. Who would have believed in 1955, who would have believed that in 6 glorious days it would all change so dramatically? There are many of us here who remember May of 1967, the growing fear, the tension that gripped world Jewry as the noose becomes tighter around Eretz Yisrael. The Straits of Tiran are cut off. All planes stop flying to Eretz Yisrael. Only El Al, the only opening to the world. When the Straits of Tiran closed, I had that feeling, Min hametzar karosi ka, from the straits I called out unto God. And we didn't know then, Ononi bamer chavyo, that the answer would come, that God would answer us in the width and the breadth of this entire country. There's a story I love. I like it. I was in Toronto at the time. So what did we do in Chutz La'aretz? We were very worried. The whole Jewish world was worried. It was a period of real anxiety, to a point that it was becoming fear. And so, what do Jews in Chutz La'aretz know how to do? They know how to do two things: pray and give money. So here I was in Toronto, and I saw a little item in the newspaper. I never forgot it. A fellow went into his bank to ask his bank manager for a loan. Bank manager asks him, "What do you want the loan for?" He said, "I want to give money to Israel." So he said, "You know, we're a bank. We don't give money for that." "Well, what do you give money for?" "Well, you know, you want to buy a car? We'll lend you money. You want to buy a house? We'll lend you money. You want to do home improvements? We'll give you money." Man turns to the manager and says, "I want a home improvement loan." And he got it. Yesh kaina elamo b'shah achat. One can acquire his world in 1 hour. I don't know. I thought of my own pshat. The The Rambam refers to the Rabbi Shalom, God himself, as the Yesh. The very opening of the Rambam mitzvah, Leidash Yesh Shom Motzu Yidishom. There is one who exists. Yesh Kona Olamo. God acquired his world, his people, his land in one glorious hour at the beginning of the 6th Day War. The time had come, Ato Tokum Terachem Zion. God arose and his mercy was upon Zion. Eit Lechenin, the time for God to find grace in this city. Kivon Moed, the time had come. And when the time comes, it waits for nothing. And in those hours at the beginning of the 6th Day War, God wrought miracles that he has been doing for us ad hayom hazeh. Can't imagine the blessing in this country. But the one thing that I keep pointing out to my children and to my grandchildren, I don't know, this grabs me. There are 60 million refugees in the world today. You understand there isn't a single Jew in the world who's a refugee? For 1900 years, we were the refugees. My parents were refugees. My grandparents were refugees. For 69 years, not a single Jew in the world is without a home. When was that ever true in our entire history? So here it is. We have a great deal to be thankful for, a great deal to say Shevach v'hodoya leRabbeinu to the Rabbeinu Shalom for everything that is done for us. I think people forget. Here it was, before the 6th Day War. Naomi Shemer said it best. Ir asher badam yoshevet ubelibach choma, a city that dwells alone and in it there's this ugly wall. She's describing the city of Eicha, the city of Yirmiyahu, and then in those glorious 6 days it becomes the city of Yeshayahu. But more than that, for me also, Modim de Rabbanan, I think we say it very quickly, and not many people think about it, but that Modim de Rabbanan has become extremely significant. Modim anachnu lach, shehechitanu v'kiyamtanu. Rabbeinu Shalom, you kept us alive and we're here. We are here in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, celebrating 50 years of the liberation and unification of this city. What a tremendous simcha this is, and a schus for us all. Shehechitanu v'kiyamtanu, you kept us alive. Here we are, and we're able to celebrate it. About 3 weeks after the establishment of the State of Israel, I graduated elementary school. You can make all the calculations you want, it's okay with me. I graduated Yeshiva Torah V'das in Williamsburg. Now, at the graduation, I recited a poem. It's now, how many? 62? Okay, it's about 70 years since I recited the poem publicly last. And I'm going to recite part of it right now here. And with that, open the celebrations of Yom Yerushalayim. What a schus. Haidul Hashem ki tov ki li'olam chazdo. The name of the poem is The Eternal Riddle. It was written by P.M. Raskin in 1914. For 70 years I didn't know what the PM stood for, and I decided if I'm going to recite it here, then I had better find out what it stands for. Philip Max Raskin. Here goes. Israel, my people, God's greatest riddle. Will thy solution ever be told? Fought, never conquered, bent, never broken, mortal, immortal, youthful, though old. Egypt enslaved thee, Babylon crushed thee, Rome led thee captive, homeless thy head. Where are those nations mighty and fearsome? Thou hast survived them, they are long dead. Nations keep coming, nations keep going, passing like shadows, wiped off the earth. Thou an eternal witness remainest, bearing a message, God is but one. You are the one, watching their burial, watching their birth. Prithee, who taught thee never to die? Israel, my people, God's greatest riddle. And here it is, 70 or 69 years later. Who would have believed what that little state of 1948 would become 69 years later? A world power in nearly every area of endeavor. This is only because of the outpouring of the Rabbi Hashem's blessing to this country. We owe him a great debt of gratitude. Zahayom Asadonai Nagila v'nismecha bo. But we always remember, after we say that, we realize and we understand that there are forces of evil in the world arrayed against us. And therefore immediately after we say that, we say, Ona Hashem Oshiana, Ona Hashem Hatzlichana. The Rabbi Hashem is listening. He's been listening to us for 69 years. The Rabbi Hashem has given us blessing like our grandparents, great-grandparents could only have hoped. Whatever was Nevuah 70 years ago is today reality. We're living the fulfillment of the words of the Nevi'im. So it's time for us to celebrate the Leiv Nefesh with a full heart. Rabotai, Yom Yerushalayim Sameach.